Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, now that the guidelines for the disposal of ARPA money have been issued, I'd like to get Mr. Buchanan's opinion on the fire hydrants, the ability to use ARPA money for fire hydrants, if he doesn't care to expound on that.
Don't mind at all to expand on that. The final guidelines are out, been released, I believe it was January the 6th. It is a 437-page document. We have not had time to digest it, but we have reviewed it. There was also a 44-page condensed version, which isn't all that condensed to my book, but a lot less than 437. The biggest change that we noticed in there was the loss of revenue. I will circle back to your water question, I'm sorry, but loss of revenue. Before we had to calculate that, in the first year, we had a favorable result in that calculation. We was able to assume about $3.4 million in loss of revenue. But that'll be each year's circumstances. So that could not be to our favor in subsequent years. One of the biggest changes is they allowed a $10 million allotment that you can just pick, regardless of what your situation is. A standard allowance is what they called it. And so that would alleviate any risk of not having favorable numbers in future years. So again, haven't got to discuss this with everybody yet, but my recommendation would be to take the $10 million standard allowance that would safeguard ourselves from having a year that didn't provide any loss of revenue. On average, with the 1 year that we have, we could potentially get all $11 million in loss of revenue. But I'm not much of a gambler, and so if you told me 10 for sure, my recommendation would be take the 10 that we can guarantee. It also goes on to talk briefly that if you do this loss of revenue, which we had suspected would earlier, it streamlines reporting. And so that would be a huge burden off of this office and off of anybody else that we contract with to help with reporting and compliance. Of course, this money is allowable for them to help us with that, but the fewer projects that require extensive reporting, I would assume the less their bill will be to us. So more money goes into the county and less to a third party for compliance purposes. As far as water, they did expand water projects, but from what I've read briefly, I saw that to include reservoirs and dams. I did not see anything so far that makes me feel any different about fire hydrants. I'll just keep pursuing that, keep seeing what people have to say, but I haven't seen anything that's changed my take on that to this point.
Can you use some of the money to extend the water line to an area that's got a water problem?
From what I've seen, extending water lines is a liable expense.
Okay, because I've got a group of people that have called me saying they've got problems with their water.
Yeah,
That's all I know at the moment.
expanding clean drinking water to new customers. If you have contaminants, removing contaminants from existing wastewater treatment, but I've not seen hydrants listed specifically yet.
This one lady said it tasted like it had oil in it or something. But I don't know. They haven't had it tested.
Mr. Buchanan, whether we take the standard 10 million or it's kind of, to me, almost like the IRS. It's a standard deduction or your guidelines. So
Fair analysis.
if we take the standard 10 million, does that change the types of restrictions that are on the money, or what have you?
To me, it's less invasive. It's less restrictive. You still cannot put money into a pension plan. You still can't put money into a rainy fund reserve. You still can't pay P&I on debt. But that's about it. It does say in here, you'll bear with me, I'll try to find it and read it to you. Government services is the most flexible eligible use category under the SLFRF program, and funds are subject to streamlined reporting and compliance requirements. Recipients should be mindful that certain restrictions, which are detailed farther in the restrictions on use section and apply to all uses of funds, still apply to government services as well. But it says basically if you use the loss of revenue, it'll allow you for any government service that you provide. And then it gives you a little list of that, which says this is not an all-inclusive list. But everything that we provide for the citizens of Hawkins County is essentially government service outside of the few that I mentioned.
So it's safe to assume then if we take the 10 million, the chances of the federal government coming back and saying you spent that money in the wrong way, the chances of that happening and having to pay it back are less. Would you say that?
I would agree with that statement.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? related to that?
That money we're getting at $10 million pretty much goes for one-shot deals, doesn't it? Things that the county needs that we can buy at one time or do provide for things.
Yes and no. When you categorize it under loss of revenue, you can use it to offset existing expenses, is my understanding. But yes, they don't want you to obligate yourself to anything that would have a reoccurring in nature.
Exactly.
Yes. But if you say government services, you can also offset it against some of the salaries that we're providing. And those will be reoccurring, but that's nothing new. So we haven't created a new reoccurring expense, we just helped fund what we have.